No, you didn't wake me. I was starting to stir anyway. I just wanted to lie here a little longer, since the sun hasn't fully set. Oh, what time is it? Almost 6? Only a few more minutes and it'll be safe to go outside. Since you yourself only just woke up, are you fully nocturnal by now, kitten? Getting close? You have blackout curtains like the ones in this room? They certainly help. Some vampires paint all their windows black, or put newspaper on the glass, but it can also look suspicious to outsiders, and the last thing a vampire wants is the cops poking around their hiding place. Where's Jasper? One moment. He's on the other side of the ranch, setting up a security camera along the fence line, I think. I can hear him messing with something metallic, but the lingering sun is blocking my senses. He's a wonderful friend, and I'm lucky to have him. I feel bad sometimes because I feel like I'm taking advantage of his kindness. And while he's never coddled me or treated me differently because of my condition, I hate being fussed over. When I was alive, ladies like me were delicate flowers that needed to be protected from the world. I'm glad to live in much more liberated times. And I'm glad to be here, in this home. I don't feel safe going back to mine. Not yet, at least. Especially now I know I have a pest control problem. I don't want to think about how long 13's rats were watching me. Jasper kindly has an open door policy with his friends, but I also want to check he's comfortable with me staying here for a few nights, until this threat is dealt with. What do I know about this threat? More than I should, but I hesitate to tell you any more details. You want to help protect me? Oh, kitten, your heart really is as sweet as the blood that flows through you. But even your wicked little claws won't stand a chance against him. Besides, anyone who tries to keep me safe ends up being hurt. Or killed. But you're a part of this now. I think it's time you learnt the full story. I'm a vampire after all. We all have tales of woe. I'm originally from England, and my fiancé was sent abroad to settle a real estate purchase for an enigmatic noble. I still not dare speak his name in case it should catch his attention, so I will refer to him as the Count. My beloved and I kept in touch with letters, but the Count was not what he seemed. He hurt my fiancé, imprisoned him, and left him to die while he set off for England to begin his conquest. Yes, conquest. It seems this covetous, cruel old man was a monster set on covering the world in darkness of his reign. As England was one of the most powerful nations in the world at the time, it made sense that he would start there. Thankfully, Sorry, it still hurts to speak of him. My beloved, Jonathan, managed to escape but was gravely ill, so I went to Budapest to care for him. There we were married. But in our absence, the Count had already begun spreading his influence across Whitby, corrupting and devouring my dearest friend Lucy, twisting and transforming the sweet girl I knew into a vampire. As a lady, I was kept away from the ugliness of putting her out of her misery, but I still felt the agony of losing her, as though a stake was driven through my very soul. No. While this is painful for me to recount, you need to know the full story. When he at last returned to me, I married Jonathan and learned of the horrors he had endured. My husband, Lucy's fiancé, and her other suitors, and the strangest professor I've ever met, managed to track down where the Count was lurking. Thanks to my efforts in compiling all the information scattered across our letters, journal entries, and the newspaper articles about mysterious happenings. But while they were searching for his hiding place, the Count slithered his way into my bedroom. His eyes, crimson gleaming pearls, soaked in the blood of his countless enemies. I was both terrified and mesmerized, and knew how a doe feels when staring down a dire wolf. His words were soft and tender to pacify me, but his voice trembled with rage. He wanted to hurt my husband and friends for ruining his plans, so he came to me. If he could not conquer England, he would make sure his seeds of ruin would still be sown. He bit me. I struggled and screamed, but he forced his foul, potent blood down my throat. It was the sweetest poison I've ever tasted, and all the while he stroked my hair in some feeble attempt to comfort me. Sometimes his accent would shift between Romanian and English, as though still trying it on for size. It could have been minutes or hours, but at last Jonathan and our compatriots burst into the room, and the Count fled into the darkness. But the damage had been done. Ever since that night, he's been inside me. When I close my eyes, I can feel him writhing in the dark. And he's close. So close I can practically feel his breath on my skin. We continued our pursuit and chased him back to Romania, where he was staked and decapitated. But I don't think something that evil can ever truly die. They just wait, quiet and seething in the darkness until they can arise once more. After the nightmare, there was peace for a while. Jonathan and I had a child, my sweet boy Quincy. We named him after our dear friend who died fighting the Count. But then we noticed how strange it was that I stayed young when my husband and son grew older. A sickness had taken hold of me, a curse of undeath, given to me by the Count and left to fester in my veins in his absence. The professor tested my blood and agreed that it was some manner of infection, and given the age and power the Count holds, it makes sense that his blood wouldn't be so easily burned from my body just because the host was defeated. The professor tried to burn this infection out of me. I was bathed in holy water, force-fed raw garlic and consecrated wafers, endured numerous blood transfusions, but all it did was cause me pain and misery, and the sickness of the undead continued to take hold. Jonathan put an end to the torture when the professor decreed that I should be staked and decapitated, put down like the monster I was becoming. But Jonathan proudly said that he would love me no matter what. I loved him for his kind heart, but knew how distressed he was when he watched me feed on stray animals. No doubt thinking of the poor wretch in the asylum whose mind was shattered by the Count's influence. But Jonathan kept getting older, as did my son. It's a strange thing, holding the wrinkled, quivering hand of your son, when your own is still as smooth and cold as ever. I stayed in England as long as possible, but couldn't bring myself to remain when the last of my friends were gone. After we buried my son beside his father, I came here, to America. When my friend Quincy, the first, one of Lucy's suitors, was alive, he always spoke so highly of America, specifically of his home in Texas. So I wanted to come here. At first just to pay my respects and make sure that his family was doing well, but the longer I stayed, the harder it was to leave. This country was so raw, so new, and these endless expanses of desert were the perfect place to start again. The complete opposite of England's green fields and cold rain. I used the fortune I'd accumulated over the years to establish a small outpost, and that outpost eventually grew into a settlement, which eventually became the town of Duskgate, my personal sanctuary. Humans found a home here, and, perhaps sensing my power, some other creatures were drawn in as well. Vampires, werewolves, other strange beasts. There's a part of my blood that takes pleasure in being the shadowy leader of this town, ruling over it in a way. And now, after all this time, the Count comes thundering towards me like a warship of destruction, eager to tear down everything I've built. But even after dwelling here for over a century, sometimes my English accent slips through. Though it feels nice to speak at length in this voice again. And that's my tale of woe. I gave my diaries and Jonathan's letters to a talented writer in the hopes he'd immortalize their sacrifice, and he most certainly did. Don't say his name. The Count's name. Not until we're ready to be under the blade of his attention. But yes, you now know who I speak of, and you understand why he is not to be underestimated. What does he want from me? He could just want to kill me in an act of petty revenge, but it's more likely he wants to take over what I've built here. What I know for certain is that we must be prepared to confront him. Weaknesses? The same as any vampire. The sun, a stake through the heart, a disgust for garlic, consecrated wafers and holy water. But from what the professor said, older vampires may have weaknesses yet to be discovered. I also don't know if he only just awakened or is approaching us at full strength, but we need to be prepared. Our best plan is to draw him here, to the ranch, away from the prying eyes of the humans in town. Then we have enough open space to fight him, and we have the advantage of the location. But the sun is almost set, so I'd better go and feed 13. He's still chained up in the barn, but is being cooperative. You can help Jasper check the defenses and make sure there aren't any weaknesses we overlooked. Then maybe go pick out a weapon you're comfortable using. Oh, kitten, this is Texas. Jasper has an armory in the cellar and enough bullets to bring down a pissed-off werewolf on a full moon. We should get up and eat something before going outside and getting to work. But before we go, thank you, kitten, for listening. I don't have many friends in this world, so it means a lot knowing you've got my back. You really are the sweetest. Honestly, I haven't used my actual name in over a century. I prefer to be called Mimi here in America. It's the name I created for myself after all. But my true name will always be Mrs. Mina Harker. If you enjoyed this ASMR tale and want to become one of the incredibly kind souls featured here, then please consider supporting me on Patreon. To access my Discord server, attend my monthly live narrations, and enjoy other perks, click on the Patreon link below. Don't forget to check out my merch store on Fourth Wall to pick up some stickers or pins featuring your favorite characters, or a stylish shirt to show your support for the Seraph of Stories. You can also catch me live on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday evening, so be sure to drop by sometime. Thank you. Don't forget to subscribe, and stay wicked and wonderful.